Welcome to Almost Pro, the podcast where we explore the stories of athletes whose journeys don't always follow the script and the lessons they carry into life beyond sport. I'm Frances, joined by my co-host Laura, and today's guest is someone who knows all about walking the line between two passions, rugby and music. From the rugby fields of Melbourne to busking at the Umundi markets, Will Clift has always lived in two worlds. He rose through the Melbourne Rebels system, played alongside his brother at the Warringah Rats, and for years tried to balance the structure of professional rugby with the pull of songwriting. When COVID disrupted his playing career, it also opened the door for his first EP, a release that would set him on a new path. Since then, Will has hiked the Himalayas, hung up the boots at 26, and poured everything into music. He has collaborated with Matt Corby on a critically acclaimed EP, sold out headline shows across the East Coast, and even played his first international show in London earlier this year. Will, we're excited to dive into how you went from the pitch to the stage. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Wow, Will, what an intro. I feel like like we're in an epic story or battle of two worlds between sport and music here.
Yeah, no. It's always funny. Like I feel like, I know the story. So to me, I'm just like, yeah, that's what happened. But it's nice to hear that people find it interesting,
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's interesting too, because while sport and music seem so different, there's so much that they do share, like rhythm, coordination, discipline, the ability to perform under pressure. So it feels, from where I'm sitting, almost like a bit of a left field, but also natural kind of progression for someone to take. But probably the best place to start is right at the beginning. So can you take us right back to the beginning? Growing up in a rugby family, was it always assumed that you would play? How did it all start for you?
Yeah, I think, some of my earliest memories are to do with rugby, to be honest. We sort of started playing rugby from the age of about 5. My dad is just the biggest rugby fan you've ever met, and my mum's been dragged into it now as well. But yeah, I was really lucky. My dad is the best dad in the world, and he coached a bunch of teams growing up that I was a part of, and was really supportive with all of that. And it just was part of life, My brother, also a professional rugby player, ended up meaning that we were training buddies, and we grew up training together, and I really enjoyed that part of it. But yeah, it was part of life for sure.
And is this union or league?
Union. No shade.
No, none here. It's the original, so it has to be the best, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so when did music start for you?
So I kind of fell into music in an odd way. One of my teachers at school was setting up an assembly lineup where the kids had to get up and have a sing. And you know what it's like. You've got a bunch of grade 2 kids, and they've actually got no idea what they're doing, but everyone's super supportive. And I think my teacher was really supportive, and my mum was really supportive of that. And I ended up doing lessons because I'd done well in front of the audience. And my nana, actually, on my dad's side, she's Italian. She loves singing. She's always been in the choir. She's the only person in my family who is musical, really. So she ended up paying for a lot of my music lessons and really getting behind the music side of things. I had a great music teacher who I still am in contact with now, and she comes to my gigs, and she kind of became part of my little family. But yeah, it was very different to rugby. Rugby was sort of part of the family culture, and music was a passion that developed over time through external factors, I guess.
Did you ever feel torn between the two at the young age?
Not at all. I never felt at a very young age, but then I probably hit a point when I was about 16 where things did start to clash. Actually, that's one of the reasons that I ended up moving school, was because I was on a music scholarship at Sunshine Coast Grammar School, and I had a clash where I was meant to be performing one evening, but I'd also been selected for the regional team representing the school as well. And I'd asked the music department to push the performance back a little bit so I could play my rugby game and then run over to the choir and perform the solo that I was meant to do with the choir. And the music department was not very supportive and said, we're not doing that. And unfortunately, one of my mates had to take my solo and was not very happy with me because he wasn't very prepared. But yeah, and the music department had a bit of a grudge against me and tried to get rid of my scholarship. And we said, well, I guess we're moving school. So that's sort of one of the things that prompted the move to boarding school. I ended up at Toowoomba Grammar on a music scholarship again, but playing for the first 15 there. But yeah, it was tricky because I was very happy to do both, but in that situation, it wasn't supported.
Yeah, it feels like you had the will and the know-how, but the structure wasn't there for someone to do both.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, unfortunately, but justifiably, there aren't contingency plans for stuff like that because it's not a very common occurrence. Like, no one would have thought, oh, this game is on the same day, so we shouldn't put the choir on, But yeah.
That's amazing. There's kind of this real like double life notion in that for a teenage boy. You're in the music department, you're on the rugby pitch. Did you ever feel like there was a bit of a double life? You were two different people trying to live in both streams?
Definitely, yeah. I think reflecting now, I think I was more myself as a musician and I had a facade for the rugby. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I think I felt a lot more comfortable in the music environment, even though in some ways I probably enjoyed some of the things I was doing with music less, stuff like choir and musicals that I didn't really align with. I think the people I was surrounded with, I aligned with more.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, the creatives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So knowing that then, what was it like to step into what became your early adulthood in rugby rather than music?
Yeah, I mean, it was weird again because I was doing both. I was actually studying music full time. To make things even more difficult, it was an accelerated program in trimesters whilst I was training full time with the Melbourne Rebels. So that was very odd. And obviously, I moved to Melbourne at the age of 18 and you still don't really know who you are. And I had a really great group of friends in the music space. And I actually had a really hard time with the Melbourne Rebels because it wasn't a very supportive environment. They were severely underfunded, which meant that the players were not taken care of as well as they probably should have been.
Right.
But no fault of anybody there other than the fact that they didn't have enough money to do it, But yeah, it was really an interesting time. And I think there were times with rugby that I did feel really supported and I had a good group of people. For example, when I was playing with Melbourne Uni, it was a great community, such great people. Some of my best friends will come from that. But I think they're an exception in the rugby community because it was made up of international students that were studying at Melbourne University.
Right.
So they were, well traveled and had a lot of other things going on in their lives that I definitely connected with.
Will, have you seen High School Musical?
I was waiting for this. Who gets brought up? The Troy Bolton does come up.
What's happened to you? Do people ask you about that?
Yeah. Actually, when I was 16, the first time it came up was at Sunshine Coast Grammar. The captain of the team made a speech and said that, and then it's come up from the music industry side now a couple times. So you're on it.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. But it kind of is like there's this one person, it's you, trying to bridge two really, really different spheres.
Yeah.
In a university setting, in a boarding school setting, in a high school setting, of what we know of teenage boys and their pursuits. And I think there's this really special, I guess, role that you're able to play when you can show that a person is not defined by one or the other.
Yeah.
But actually has these suite of gifts or talents that they're able to use in the sporting and the creative spheres.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Really cool. Really, really cool. So can you give us a bit of a breakdown? So you came out of high school into boarding school, still doing year 12, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you go to Melbourne Uni for music.
Even more confusing. I moved down to Melbourne. I studied at the Australian Institute of Music.
Yeah.
and was studying music there
Yeah.
for 2 and a bit years. And then I had 3 months off. I got offered a scholarship to play rugby for Melbourne University, and I studied science at Melbourne University.
Right.
Wow, it's a bit of
Yeah.
a
Right.
change.
Yeah, it was definitely a change. The context for that is my dad is a vet, and there was a stage where I thought maybe I'll try to do vet medicine, maybe I'll try to do normal medicine. So I jumped into that, had a great time studying science, ended up majoring in neuroscience, finished that
Wow.
during COVID, and got a little diploma in French because Melbourne Uni offers a concurrent diploma for free. But yeah, it was an interesting time.
Mate, you had your bases covered.
Yeah.
I definitely did. I definitely bit off more than I could chew. Looking back now, I think I
Gosh.
didn't give the degree the time that it probably deserved, and I did get through it, and I really enjoyed it, and definitely don't regret it. I met some of the most amazing people of my life from doing that degree. But yeah, very. Now I look back at it, I'm like, I can't believe that I had to wear a lab coat and do chemistry experiments
I
because that
can't believe how many lives you've lived.
I
too
know.
many, too many.
Oh my gosh, here I was like, oh, a little bit of a Troy Bolton reference, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And you're like, well, what about this thing? Lab coat on top of that. That is just brilliant. So you then go to, so you're in Melbourne Uni, you're there for rugby,
Yeah,
like studying science.
yeah.
And where's music while you're there?
It was almost seasonal. It was very strange because
Uh-huh.
rugby sort of takes over during winter, and then over the summer months, music would sort of take off again, and I would play a few gigs and organize a couple of releases. And I did. I released 2 singles whilst I was still living in Melbourne. But yeah, the music at that stage of my life had definitely taken a bit of a back seat.
Right.
Then it wasn't until COVID that I gave the music a little bit more of time, I guess.
Why? Why did COVID give you the avenue?
Because I physically couldn't play rugby.
Yeah.
I had a lot of spare time. I was very lucky during COVID. My family were living on a 100-acre property in Yandina, like North Arm, and I managed to escape Melbourne 2 days before the lockdown, and we set up at the 100 acres, and we had off-grid power and a veggie patch, and we thought if everything goes to shit, we have a little bloody commune. We were like, this is the perfect situation. So
Right.
we were 20 minutes from the beach, and my brother and I would just train. I would do my study online. I organized my releases, which luckily I'd recorded most of my EP before COVID had happened in Melbourne. And it was just the finishing touches that needed to happen, which could happen online during COVID. So the stars kind of just aligned. And yeah, with all the free time, it just worked.
Do you also think, though, that at that time, like the decision was taken out of your hands? If you're not at the level where globally we were seeing this kind of friction between civilians and sports people of like, why do the athletes get to continue to play as long as they stay in their team bubble?
Mhm.
You're a step below that, where your team bubble wasn't one of the national and approved team bubbles. Therefore, your game is off, your
Mhm.
training is, your sport is off. Do you feel like it was kind of your hand was almost forced a little that you couldn't play rugby, therefore you did have this really incredible, the double life paid off,
Yeah.
where you had music ready?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think it did. And I think I was in a really good headspace because I was with my family. And the pressure was off, Yeah. If COVID didn't happen, I'm sure I would have taken a very different path.
Do you have a what if around that?
Not really. I do think this because my goal with rugby at that stage was definitely to jump overseas. So,
Right.
and I was actively hunting for positions overseas. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been surprised if I ended up in somewhere in Europe.
If we go back to what you were saying, though, about the underfunding in some of those sort of that second tier of rugby in Australia,
Yeah.
is that what was driving you overseas? Like, if you're going to make a living out of it, we created this podcast for this very reason.
Yeah.
quite frequently you're committing the full-time hours of your life to a sport,
Mhm.
but that system or the structure fails to support financially.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is 100% the case with rugby union. Like, the top level is professional, but the team I was training with in Melbourne, other than the Wallabies, was the top level. And there was a group of young guys my age in the same situation as me who were essentially living in bunk beds at like a strange refuge in Box Hill, uh, training full time as professional athletes, but the funding just wasn't there. And I mean, that's why the Melbourne Rebels have dissolved now. They couldn't develop the fan base down in Melbourne. It's strange, but places like France and Japan, England, which has been struggling financially as well, a lot of rugby players jump to those countries because there are more professional opportunities, and you can get paid an actual decent amount living over there comfortably. Whereas Australia, it's like you've got 4 teams or whatever there are to choose from. And if you're not in that top 25, you're on the fringes, and you definitely, even, I mean, I know people who have been in the 25 who've played games consistently for professional sides, but they still have to work separately, It's just a strange.
It's
Yeah.
interesting from a country where, you could arguably say that it's the lifeblood of the country is to play sport, yet a lot of Australian athletes do have to go overseas. This is a reoccurring story, a reoccurring theme. They have to go overseas to be able to find these financially viable options to
Yeah.
continue playing.
It's
Yeah,
funny, if I come back to the music as well, a lot of artists find they have to jump internationally and make a name for themselves in somewhere like London before they
right.
get recognized in Australia by the music industry. And then all of a sudden, the music industry community, I guess, will sort of claim that artist as Australian again now that they've broken overseas.
Right.
It's really interesting, strange thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that could be a whole different podcast in its own again and again and again, couldn't it? This
100%.
same area that's hopefully this issue in the future will be fixed so we can keep some of this amazing Australian talent in Australia.
100%.
Right. And
Yeah.
the fact that by then you've given so much of your life to the sport, you've been identified as having talent. And I would go so far as to say that in Australia, we're complaining that we're not keeping rugby afloat. We're not bolstering the sport as well as perhaps some other sports.
Hmm.
But I think we can see why.
Yeah.
If there's 100 or so spots to become a professional in the sport in the country, and even then you still need to have another job, I'm not sure that I'd be pushing my kids in that direction going, well, the future is yours, because you are setting them for some serious challenge. Yes, you want to support them in their passions, and I'm sure that your dad felt the same, but I'm sure he also thought with that level of talent, you'd be supported financially as well without needing to leave the country. And I guess we know that that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very, very tricky. And I think, my brother now having gone overseas and had that experience as well, even when you do get there and you are making the money overseas, is it a lifestyle that you're going to enjoy? You really have to put your body on the line, especially in any contact sport, and there's only a certain amount of time you can do that and perform at a high level if you're getting beaten up,
100%.
every day of the week.
Before that translates to lifelong injuries.
Yeah, exactly. I
Right?
mean, I think the thing is, like, you're going to have lumps and bumps for the rest of your life. And that was one of the other reasons that I really considered whether or not I wanted to do it. Was I got a concussion in my final season, and I was like, do I want to risk my memory? Do I want to have brain injury when I'm 60 years old, And I think that's a tricky thing to think about as a young adult, and culturally not something that is taken seriously, I guess, but is probably coming to the forefront a little bit more now that people are thinking about it a little bit more. Definitely more in rugby union and rugby league.
Where do you sit with wearing a helmet, one of the padded helmets, when you're playing? You mentioned concussions. So what's your thoughts?
I always, and so does my brother, wore headgear, but the headgear is less so for concussion and more to protect, it was for me to protect me from cauliflower ears, which it didn't do very well anyway. The mouth guard is actually the main thing that stops concussion. But because it's that, physical impact, and apparently if you don't have the mouth guard, there's nothing to absorb that force of the jaw clenching.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, I mean, the the headgear looks like it's going to do a lot for stuff like that. But if you put on a headgear and then run at a brick wall, it's not going to do much. It's more that like physical impact that it's going to shake the brain around and do the bad stuff. But yeah, I was an advocate for the headgear, and I think a lot of people think it looks funny, but if you've ever been in a scrum between two 140 kilo props and they're squeezing your head as tight as they possibly can on your ears, you will understand why you need headgear.
It's always my first thought watching any game, even from grassroots level, watching the kids run out there. I'm thinking, can we all just have some of the headgear on, please? It made me a lot more comfortable watching the game.
100%. Yeah. And like, I did wear shoulder pads for a long time, but I think people who don't wear mouth guards are just absolutely crazy because, and I know quite a few professional athletes that just won't wear a mouth guard.
I didn't even know that was an option. I thought it was you had
It's
to.
not.
So that's interesting.
It's not, but like you've got 30 people on a field. How are they going to, they're not checking for stuff like that.
And now time for a short break. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to join the Almost Pro community and stay up to date with the latest episodes and news. To find out more or to apply to be a guest, visit almostpropodcast.com today.
You mentioned your brother's playing overseas. He's playing rugby overseas.
Mm-hmm. He's back now, but he did have a stint. Yeah.
Yeah, but even the decision to go overseas is a decision to leave a lot behind. And I think we also overlook that fairly quickly as spectators of a sport or commentators of industry.
Yeah.
Well, if you want the opportunity, mate, they're over there. You can go to France. You can be paid to play the sport. They've got loads of competitions. They've got loads of teams. They've got plenty of opportunity. But the decision to do that always overlooks what you leave behind. You can't take your work with you. You can't take your whole structure with you. Support stays at home and you head there and have to rebuild.
And then I think people also forget that leaving that support system behind means that when things do go wrong and people get injured, you're kind of just left in the dust. And there are so many examples of people who'll uproot their lives and jump overseas. And then, 3 weeks in, they get an injury and the team doesn't have the time or energy or resources to support that person. So they're just, they come back and it's like, well, I've just uprooted my life for no reason. And at the end of the day, all of this is business. So you get, managers that will just throw you across the world and not even blink an eye for an opportunity that might not be as well supported as what it needs to be.
So true.
So COVID was your blessing.
It was one of my blessings. It was a great time. Great 2 years. Surfed a lot. Ate lots of good food. Met my beautiful partner.
How good. And made the call for music.
Exactly.
And released your first EP?
Released my first EP. There was a little bit longer before I pulled the trigger with rugby. I actually tried to go back down to Melbourne after COVID. And I lasted about a month and said, no, I'm moving back to the sunny coast.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to Sydney.
And then to Sydney. So after that, I was with my brother. I'd finished my university degree, and we were thinking like, what do you do now? You finish your degree, which had given me so much structure, and I think I was so used to having so many things on my plate that I always sort of had a direction and a path. And then once that had finished, I was like, what do we do? And we got offered this contract down in the Northern Beaches to play for the Warringah Rats. together and thought, yeah, let's do it. Why not? And yeah, it was great. I love the Northern Beaches. My coach down there was a coach that I'd had down in Melbourne that I'm really good mates with. And there are a couple of connections from the Sunshine Coast and from Melbourne. And so it just made sense. And we had a really great time. And the Warringah Rats was another team that I really enjoyed being a part of because we were better supported. There were really great people. It had a great culture. And I think that shows this year they won the grand final and they did really well.
So the Warringah Rats was a good way to go out.
A great way to go out. Yeah. 100, and it made the decision very hard because I was letting down people who I really admired and it had done lots of favors for me, I guess, Yeah, it was a tricky decision.
What was it like playing with your brother, though, compared to where you'd played previously? Was it extra special having him there? What was that like?
Yeah, 100%. My brother and I are best mates, and it's funny, we're like similar in so many ways, but also extremely different in a lot of other ways. But we were living together in Manly. We got this apartment that was an old rundown place, but on the main strip of Manly Beach. And we would just like go to the gym and drink coffee and play rugby together. We lasted about 5 weeks in a corporate job in Sydney as recruiters, which was hilarious. And then we were like, no, this is definitely not for us. We are not wearing tight chinos and button-up shirts, catching the ferry into Sydney City every day for the next couple of years. So
What's wrong with this picture?
it was hilarious.
Well, what was it then that led to your decision to change from playing rugby to music?
I think there was definitely a specific point for me. I'd planned a big trip with my partner over to Nepal, and we did the Annapurna circuit, a big hike, 10 days walking in the Himalayas. And it had kind of been playing on my mind already. And I think that was just a very good opportunity to think. So I was writing my pros and cons lists of what I wanted the future to look like. And when I was playing in Sydney as well, I had recorded a bit of music. I'd always wanted to tour, and it was something that I couldn't do with rugby going on at the same time because it was too hard to organize the both. And as much as I had a great time playing for the Warringah Rats, it wasn't a viable career option to just be playing with the Rats long term. And that was part of the pros and cons list. Like, can I sustainably play rugby for the rest of my life and make an income from this? What's going to happen to my body if I keep playing rugby versus music, So yeah, during the hike, I made the decision, made the difficult calls, but everyone was very supportive, thankfully, and understanding. And yeah, I'm glad I did.
Was your grandmother really happy you chose music?
My Nana. Yeah. Nana is so funny. She's super supportive and loves the singing. So she also loves rugby, which is hilarious. Little Nana that fits under my underarm is like 4 foot nothing. Like every weekend she's got the rugby on and gets around it so hard. So
Oh, your family sounds so supportive, Will.
I am extremely lucky, and I wouldn't have been able to do anything that I've done without my family. I think that also comes into myself having such double lives. My dad was in the SAS, and then he requalified at Cambridge as a vet. And he was also a semi-professional cross-country horse rider and rode the Queen's horses. And my mum was a semi-professional basketball player and then went to Sandhurst and was a very good horse rider. And that's how mum and dad met. And now she's a university lecturer as a counsellor and has a business in equine therapy. So I think, the environment that you're in definitely shapes who you are. And I never saw one career as being something that I had to do my whole life because that's just not what I was surrounded by growing up.
Yeah. I love that.
And we touched on earlier some similarities between the two, but do you see any similarities between music and sport?
I think the similarities I see are similarities in any high-performing individual at anything they do, like having routine and drive to do the things you don't want to do to make things better in the future, I guess. I think there's a lot less clear of a pathway in music, whereas rugby, there is sort of a bit of a progression you can see that you have to tick off, but there's politics in both. There's lots of things that are similar and lots of things that are different, and they definitely attract different people is the other thing I would say.
That's true.
Do you find yourself surrounded by different types of people?
100%. Yeah. I think I've got my very close friends, obviously, but day to day, um, I went to Big Sound last week, which is this massive music conference where it's just every up and coming musician in Australia and every industry professional in one place watching gigs and sort of connecting for a week. And that's very different to rugby, where it's 3 days a week training. So
Yeah.
very, very different.
Yeah. Yeah. If you compared a regular day in each of the disciplines,
Yeah.
does anything cross over?
Well, I think for me, training has always been a part of who I am, as opposed to the career that I'm a part of. So I mean, I still take my diet quite seriously and my training quite seriously, which
Yeah.
is probably something that I've kept from rugby, obviously, but not much other than that, to be honest. I do a lot of driving. Obviously, it's a lot more meeting people as a musician. I think that is a huge difference, is that you're sort of constantly meeting new people every time you play a gig and navigating, getting on the right side of people, I guess, and getting the
Yeah.
most out of them. But yeah,
But
different.
you're on your own now, right? You were part of a team,
hmm
and now in this pursuit, that's all Will.
I miss the team culture, when I was part of really good teams, like Melbourne Uni felt like such a family unit, the rugby club there. But at the same time, I play with a band and I have really close friends that are in the band that I employ, which is really good. But yeah, it's a different relationship as well, because I think you're seeing each other so much when you're in a rugby team. It's sort of like this monotonous routine of like, oh, how you doing today? Dap each other up, go get the gym session done. Whereas I think it's easier to have a little bit of a deeper relationship with people in the music industry, I think.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we
Okay.
we'll do a rehearsal with my band, and it's sort of a routine that I'll buy the band dinner and then we sit on the floor and we have a chat about what's going on in everyone's life.
I
And
love that.
something like that just doesn't happen at the same level in a sporting environment, I don't think.
Okay. Okay. And so with music then,
Yeah.
we talk about getting contracts with sport and knowing you're heading into a team and there's a financial benefit to that, but there's also structure and requirements of you that are contracted. With music, what was your confirming moment? What's something that's happened that's like, we talk about the contract in sport. What's been confirming for music for you where you went, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be?
I think, again, a perfect moment that happened because of the timing as well. I quit with the Warringah Rats, and my brother was offered this international contract to go play with the Leicester Tigers, which is one of the best professional setups in the world. It would have been amazing to do. He was
Yeah.
he was going internationally to play rugby, which is something I'd always wanted to do. And at a very similar time, I'd entered a competition to play a gig and be mentored by one of my favorite artists growing up, Matt Corby. And
Okay.
I won that. And I think that was such good timing, because I would have been so sad if my brother had gone overseas and I hadn't made that happen. But yeah, I'd released some music. I'd finally managed to book in a tour, which had been on my bucket list for 5 years. So I think meeting Matt as one of my childhood heroes was very much a positive experience and a great thing to happen at that time.
Sounds
Yeah,
like a bit of a sign,
Ye-
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, it always comes back to like, I probably got chosen for that because of the story that I just quit rugby as well. Wild Turkey organized all of it, and they were starting this new campaign of like, trust your spirit, follow your dreams kind of thing. And a guy who's been playing rugby jumps into music. They just ate that up. So it all worked
Well,
out very nicely.
oh, but again, the years that you gave the sport, if that is the link that helped you to move into the next chapter, then that's amazing,
We
right?
love happy days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. When you played rugby and now playing music, were you a pre-game, pre-show ritual kind of guy?
I had a strange ritual. I was kind of a line out specialist, and you have
Okay.
to tape your legs up as a line out jumper. And we had like an ongoing joke that you have to make the taping as aesthetic as possible. So I had a very strict structure of how I tape my legs.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, and then obviously like a warm up routine, and my brother and I were right into our diet. So we were giving ourselves the right amount of caffeine and eating enough carbohydrates to get ready for the day. And yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah. Do you do anything now pre-show?
Um, I don't drink is one that's sort of, an opposite, but I think a lot of people do. I obviously warm up as a musician, as a singer. Warming up is really important. It's tricky when you're touring and playing headline shows. You're also extremely stressed because you're running the show as an event manager as well. So you kind of end up running around and making sure the band's okay, and making sure the person on the door's doing okay, seeing how the ticket sales are going. Have I got the
Yeah.
merch desk up and ready to go?
Yeah.
Do I need to get changed? There's like 50
Yeah.
million things going on as an independent artist to think about. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. What would you say your proudest music moment has been?
I would say my proudest moment. There's so many good moments. Like I'm so lucky that I've had a lot of fun doing what I do.
So good.
I opened a show for Matt Corby in Byron, which was separate to the whole Wild Turkey thing. And
Mhm.
that was probably off the back of recording the EP with Matt, which is one of
Mhm.
my best memories with music. I got to go and like live at Matt's studio for a week, and we would go surf and then make music all day. And it was just such a fun experience, and definitely pinch myself when you're drinking a beer and writing songs with someone who you've admired since the age of 13, and just
Yeah.
realizing that like he's just a great human, but a human, and he's just doing it like everybody else.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
It it sounds like even if you sat down and wrote out, okay, what's the perfect way this could go, that exceeded expectations. You
a
know,
hundred
it
percent.
yeah.
Yeah. I think, I think I was nervous meeting someone who I admired so much. There's
Yeah.
that saying of like never meet your heroes, which I always think about. And I was like, that was wrong. He's great. He's a great guy. Like, I just want
Wow.
to hang out with him because he's like such a good dude.
There's so much balancing in your journey, between sport and music, and
Mm,
no doubt you could have followed rugby all the way through by the sounds of it, and trying various different avenues, but definitely music. The
mm.
signs were there. It happened. It eventuated, and it's gone really well. With your brother playing rugby and now you in music, how did your family feel about you choosing music?
Again, just so lucky, but my family was very supportive. I think my dad was probably like, bugger, less rugby games to watch in his own head. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like fully backed me to do whatever I needed to do. My mum has always been a huge advocate for the music. She's always been like, don't get a real job, just like keep doing what you love and you'll be able to make a living out of it, and you'll actually enjoy what you're doing. So, like, why would you do anything else? It doesn't make any sense.
That is so
Um,
special.
yeah, very, very lucky. And I think, they're both people who've done that and are very inspirational. So, yeah, super handy having family in your corner and being super supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So so do you see yourself as a rugby player who became a musician, or a musician who once played rugby?
that is a very tricky question. I don't think I've thought about it. Hey, I've always been, the thing is, I've always been both. And I think there was a stage when people would ask me that question and I would be like, that's a silly question because I'm both. But
Yeah.
now I'm a musician that was a rugby player, and that's sort of like the fact of the matter. But yeah, it's tricky. I I think deep down I have always been more of a musician than a rugby player. I think I probably felt like a little bit of an imposter as a rugby player.
Yeah, right.
And that I align probably better with the music side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows?
Well, with that being said, then my next one to throw at you is if you could create a collab with any artist, and look, I'm just gonna start by saying we all love Matt Corby,
Yeah,
but if you could
has to be
create a
someone else.
collab with any artist, dead or alive, no rules, who would it be?
Oh, that is so tricky again. I think an artist that had a huge influence on me is a guy called D'Angelo. I don't know if you
Okay.
guys will know who D'Angelo is, but he essentially invented a subgenre called neo soul that in the 90s, he was part of a group called the Soulquarians that sort of changed R&B and soul music, and a lot of music today is really heavily influenced by him. He's probably one. I love John Mayer. I've really got into John Mayer more now as I try and upskill in guitar. Yeah, I would say those two. But again, I would be so scared because they're both freaks at what they do and just, like have changed the course of music history. So
You
Yeah.
might just sit down at the table in your lab coat just to add dimension.
Yes.
100%, yeah,
I'm
exactly.
fine. Yeah, look at me.
I'm waiting for the EP in French next.
Let's
That's
go.
also in there.
Absolutely. You still speak any French?
Not enough.
Yeah.
You know, that's on the list. Is my partner and I are planning at some stage to do a ski season in France because I don't think I'll ever be able to fluently speak properly unless I live in France. And that was
Mhm.
part of the reason that I actually learnt French was because I thought, oh, it'd be great if I play rugby in France, I'll be
Mm.
able to talk
Yeah.
to
Mm,
people in
mm,
French.
mm.
But yeah, it's on the list. I think a lot of people have the same experience with learning a language where you go all in and get to a good level and then it just drops off and you don't touch it for years. But
Because
yeah,
you could talk to.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need my partner to
Yeah.
learn French. Come on.
I love that you'd taken that step too. Like just to really cement the knowing that rugby in Australia was never going to be the solution. You'd learnt a language to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
It's a thing for me.
Yeah,
The
so
most
funny.
extreme angle of pre-training.
He's prepared.
Yes.
Ready to go. Let's go.
Well, other than learning an entire new language, what advice would you give to athletes wrestling with two dreams?
Ooh.
I'm throwing the hard ones at him.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's good. You're making me think. I think the thing that really made me think and make the decision I made was, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for other people around me? What actually do I want to do? And I was lucky enough that the people around me would support me in whatever I did anyway, which made it a lot easier. But I think when you look in the mirror and you think, am I living this lifestyle because it's all that I know and all that I identify with? Is that the right reason to be doing something? But yeah, and I know a lot of people who retire from rugby and it's all consuming and it becomes who you are when you're sort of at that level. And so it's really strange when you go to a party and you have to introduce yourself and someone asks, what do you do? And it took me a long time to get comfortable saying I'm a musician and not be embarrassed to talk about that. But I think it's important to ask yourself the question, is this for me or is this for the people around me? And is that going to make me happy in 15 years,
Such great advice. Great
I
advice.
love that,
Yeah.
Will. I love that. I think, you just summed up some of the most core elements of transitioning out of sport.
Yeah.
The question of my why. How did I get here? Did I follow a path that had been laid out in front of me, not the one that I actually paved? And I just kept taking the steps, but also if this sport leaves or I leave this sport, then who am I?
Yeah.
Powerful. Really, really powerful. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure, but whilst we stop the interrogation at this point, Well, and Laura's very difficult questions today.
We love.
What we don't let you leave without playing is a game of this or that. We give you two options. You choose the one that lands or resonates with you the most. Maybe we don't think about it. We just top of mind, whatever's there, let's go.
Lovely. Let's do it.
Ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay. Early mornings or late nights?
Early mornings.
Sports crowds or music crowds?
Music crowds.
Pre-match pump-up music or quiet focus?
Pre-match pump-up music.
Fitness training or skills training?
Fitness training.
Winning ugly or losing but playing the game beautifully?
Playing the game beautifully.
Rugby jersey or guitar strap?
Guitar strap.
Matt Corby collaboration or Rebels debut?
Matt Corby collaboration.
Writing in the studio or playing live on stage?
Playing live on stage.
Beach or city?
Beach.
Hiking the Himalayas or surfing at home?
Surfing at home.
Will Clift, you've survived this or that. Thanks for joining us.
Happy days. Thank you.
Will, thank you so much for joining us on Almost Pro. Your journey from rugby field to music stages is such a powerful reminder that the skills and mindset of athletes can translate into completely new arenas. From the Rebels to releasing music with Matt Corby and now selling out shows and taking your sound international, you've shown what it means to back yourself and embrace change. We'll be keeping an eye on what's next. And for everyone listening, you can follow along too. Find Will on Instagram at Will Clift Music or head to linktree/Will Clift Music to stream his music and stay across upcoming shows.
Thank you guys so much. I had such a good time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Will.
Happy
And
days.
to our Almost Pro community, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. If you've got a journey to share or you know someone who does, head to almostpropodcast.com or connect with us on socials at Almost Pro Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
Ever wondered what it really takes to be a top rugby player? Check out Will's epic highlight reel, available on YouTube via the link in this episode's description.